The wife's relatives were convincing me to accept an open marriage because my unfaithful wife wanted new experiences, so I responded to them in my own way. I remember when life felt simpler, back when the complexities of adulthood seemed distant, and my main focus was college. My world revolved around my studies, friends, and the occasional party that offered a break from the grind of law school. I was future-focused, not even thinking much about life after graduation. Being part of the Delta Tau fraternity, a brotherhood of a mix of personalities, taught me that character, not wealth or status, is what truly matters. We were a close-knit group, driven by the belief that we could make a difference in each other's lives and in the world. It was at one of those fraternity parties, a seemingly inconsequential event at the time, that I reconnected with Lisa. She was the daughter of my mother's best friend, someone I had known as a child but had lost touch with over the years. Seeing her again felt like time had frozen, yet she was no longer the little girl I remembered. She had grown into a vibrant young woman, and at that moment, I felt an inexplicable connection. What started as casual dating quickly turned into something far more serious than I had anticipated. The object in my hand is small and unassuming, less than 6 inches long, just over 3 inches wide, and about half an inch thick. It's made of plastic with a glass front and houses the microchips that power its functions. It's just a cell phone, yet it represents the greatest threat to privacy we've ever faced. These devices, once novelties, are now essential tools that we carry everywhere, giving anyone the ability to track us. Orwell's warnings seem almost quaint now. The world keeps evolving, even while we sleep. I know what you're thinking. There are rules and safeguards. But consider the phone I'm holding. It belongs to my wife, whom I've been with for over 23 years. She's always been loving and supportive, a strong partner without being overbearing. I've always believed in the sanctity of marriage, a commitment I take seriously. I thought we'd grow old together. Years ago, I traded my youth and freedom for her love, a bond as strong as steel. I'm no romantic fool. I'm a realist who values marriage based on rational judgment, not just love. Lisa, my wife, is the romantic one. Maybe that's the root of an old incompatibility that's surfacing now. Here I am, holding her iPhone at 4 a.m. in our small home office. I took it from her bedside table, the only time it's ever out of her reach. Like many modern women, she's never without her phone, always keeping it close. I had to wait until she fell asleep to pick it up. Why did I take her phone? I ask myself, am I losing it? How can I be suspicious of my loving wife? I blame my profession. It has trained me to see the dark side, to be suspicious. To put it simply, I'm a lawyer, and that has made me wary. My suspicions began with a small thing. I walked into the kitchen while Lisa, her full name is Melissa, but no one calls her that, was on the phone. Usually, she would ignore me, but this time she quickly hung up and seemed nervous. Later that evening, I asked to borrow her phone to order pizza since we no longer have a landline and the kids have gone off to college. We've been trying to save money wherever possible, and she's usually against takeout, careful about her weight. But this time, she agreed and handed me her phone without hesitation. Why not? She had already cleared her call and text logs. To her, it seemed like a good idea, but to me, it screamed deception. Clearing the logs felt like she was hiding something, and now I need to find out what that is. I'm aware that tapping a cell phone is easier than a traditional one. Don't believe me? Just search "bug cell phone" online and see the results. I even bought a $1.99 book on Amazon that explains the basics. The main issue with iPhones is jailbreaking, which involves altering Apple's operating system to install non-Apple apps. My daughters unlocked their mother's phone when she first got it, proud of their skills. Now, as I hold my wife's phone and the cable that connects it to the iPad, I hesitate. Should I really do this? Is this the right move? It could end a good marriage of 23 years. Why am I looking for trouble? We're a happy couple, and she would do anything for me, though she rarely asks for anything in return. I entered our marriage cautiously, but never regretted it. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jack T. Harlan Jr. I was at that fraternity party, but forget what you think you know about fraternities. Delta Tau, the fraternity I belonged to, was different. We were the biggest on campus, but membership was based on character, not wealth or status. Our fraternity mixed all kinds of people: athletes, nerds, top students and those on academic probation. We had beer in the basement and tutoring sessions upstairs. It was about brotherhood and doing the right thing. Failing to meet the standard meant letting everyone down, and that guilt was hard to bear. Being a Delta meant taking on responsibilities, like chaperoning the annual freshman party. Older brothers like me were tasked with watching over the pledges. We invited all freshmen, both men and women, because the Delta house was known as a safe place. I was a second-year law student, usually insulated from campus parties, but it was my turn to help. Lisa came to the party with her friends, and I recognized her immediately. She was the eldest daughter of my mother's best friend, and I'd seen her many times over the years. In my mind, she was still a child, but now she was a young woman, still youthful but undeniably more mature. I had to go over and say hello. Lisa was 6 years younger than me, as were her friends. I intended just to greet her, but Lisa greeted me warmly and kissed me. She had always been friendly, and it was clear she liked showing me off. Being an older student and a Delta host gave her a bit of a boost. I ended up watching over them all night and driving them home after the party. Lisa set up a date with me for the following week. We hit it off and dated for the rest of the semester, though it wasn't serious on my part, as she was a freshman and I was a graduate student. She eventually broke up with me to date other people. At the time, I was fine with it, but soon after, I felt like something was missing. I couldn't figure out why, as she wasn't classically beautiful, but there was something about her fresh, innocent look. She was very pretty, about 5 feet 6 inches, maybe 115 pounds, with soft hazel eyes that drew me in. It wasn't love on my part, more like a deep attraction. Lisa had a cheerful personality, and when she was gone, I felt a void. I'm intelligent and perceptive, but also introverted and shy. I tend to retreat into myself, while Lisa is outgoing and makes friends easily. She's always the life of the party. But when she broke up with me to see other guys, I accepted it, though it hurt and left me with a bruised ego. By June, after my second year of law school, I needed a summer internship. Finding one after your second year is crucial for job prospects after graduation. I searched in New York, Chicago, Washington, and other major cities, but competition was tough. Eventually, I found a job in our small college town at an old law firm specializing in property law. My apartment lease ended in July, so I needed a place to stay for the summer. Fortunately, the university opened a dorm for summer students and needed an older student to act as a responsible resident assistant. The free rent allowed me to stretch my law clerk salary further. Lisa was in summer school and living in the dorm I supervised. I tried to avoid her until one day, as I was walking up the stairs, I noticed her a flight ahead of me. When I reached my floor, she was coming down, seemingly to block my way. "I want to talk," she said. "About what?" I asked, trying to move past her. "About us and the mistake I made," she said. She regretted breaking up and asked for a second chance. I was hesitant but agreed to casually date, keeping my emotions guarded. Lisa didn't play games this time. Her birthday was September 17th, and she turned 19 that summer. When I asked what she wanted, she said, "I want you to make love to me. I'm ready, and I want you to be my first." I was surprised, as we had done everything but physical intimacy. I wasn't ready to go further and told her so, but she was persistent. As usual, Lisa got what she wanted. The day after she turned 19 was a Monday. Lisa volunteered at a women's shelter run by a local advocacy group. She went there early in the morning, and since she didn't have a car, I had to pick her up at the student union around 6 in the evening. We were still living in the dorm for a few more days before the new semester started. When Lisa arrived, she was wearing jeans and a group t-shirt, carrying an overnight bag. It was clear we were spending the night together, but I wondered why she needed the bag when we lived in the same building. We went to my dorm room, where I had no roommates. I lit candles and opened a bottle of champagne. We were both nervous, but after a few drinks, things progressed naturally. Lisa was amazing. Lisa decided it was time to tell her family about our relationship. Her parents, Patricia and Kenneth, her younger sister, Rachel, and her brother, Kenny Jr., were a successful family. Kenny Sr. was a senior VP at a local bank, and Patricia taught at the community college. They were impressive people and treated me like royalty, impressed by my status as a third-year law student. Patricia, originally from the same town, had gone to high school with my mother, who became a nurse. Patricia was a striking woman, taller than Lisa, with a graceful, statuesque beauty that aged well. Her husband was a tall, silver-haired businessman, a bit heavy-set, looking older than his 48 years, while Patricia looked younger than her age. Rachel, their 17-year-old daughter, was beginning to gain weight but had her mother's height and looks. Kenny, 13, was tall and showed promise of a strong physique. He and I became great friends, and now he's one of my closest friends. My parents had loved Lisa long before we started dating, and she quickly became part of my family. Even my younger sister, Claire, was a fan. My brother was too young to have an opinion. My family wasn't as well off as Lisa's. My father, Jack Sr., ran the family equipment rental business with my uncle, Fred, who was 12 years older and a bit of a tightwad. The business was doing well thanks to my father's outgoing personality and his ability to work with all kinds of people. My mother, Carol, worked because the business's income was modest, and my uncle was conservative about profits. I was close to my mother, who was tall, pretty, and 7 years younger than my father. She had striking blonde hair, which she maintained with the help of a hairdresser. A registered nurse, she worked nights, earning a master's degree and becoming the head nurse at her hospital. My relationship with my father was more complicated. He always tried to get me to open up, but with my shy and introverted personality, it was difficult. He's a friendly, outgoing man who believes in finding common ground with everyone. He never starts fights, preferring to turn the other cheek. Although we saw things differently, he approved of Lisa, often saying, "She's as smart and beautiful as her mother." As a child, I loved waiting for my mom to come home. If she worked the 3 to midnight shift, Dad would let me stay up on Friday and Saturday nights. I would babysit my siblings while he picked her up from work, and we'd have hamburgers and shakes together. Sometimes Mom came home alone, kissed me goodnight, and I'd catch the scent of her Chanel No. 5 before she showered and went to bed. Even during tough times when money was tight and Mom worked more hours, our home was filled with love. My mom and Lisa's mom were close friends, and our families got along well. Looking forward to our marriage, my mom summed up her feelings about Lisa. "She's a fine girl, Jack. Don't mess it up." We were all excited for the wedding. Despite her love for me, Mom sometimes still saw me as a kid. I admit I could be stubborn and immature, especially with Lisa. I enjoyed our relationship but wanted her to stay carefree. Lisa had other plans. She moved in with me during my final year of law school, which strained our finances. My mom increased Lisa's allowance, signaling that our relationship was getting serious. By March, Lisa made it clear she expected commitment, especially since I had taken her virginity. With my impending graduation and professional career, Lisa felt I was leaving her behind, as she still had over a year left in school. She believed what was good for her was good for us, and she was usually right. We were good together, and she made me feel complete, but I hesitated to marry her. Not out of love, but out of comfort. I used her age as an excuse. She was 19, and I was almost 27, but it wasn't genuine. My mom rejected that excuse, saying, "Lisa is mature for her age, and you're not. It's about maturity, not age. Your hesitation shows you're still not ready." She saw through my fears of missing out on something. In the end, Lisa's influence and support from others pushed me to marry her, despite my doubts. After the bar exam, there was no bachelor party, though Lisa had a wild bachelorette party. I was too focused on studying 22 hours a day to pass the New York bar, one of the toughest in the country. By the time I learned I had passed, Lisa was 5 months pregnant, likely not an accident. We discovered it was twins just before the exam results came out. I had a job lined up, but I needed to pass the bar to secure it. Money was tight, and I worked 70 hours a week to prepare for the babies. Despite our financial struggles, Lisa never let it affect her. She took her last junior year exam just an hour before giving birth to 2 perfect identical girls. For me, it was love at first sight. Almost 21 years later, I still love those girls, though differently. Lisa and I struggled initially. We lived in a small apartment with tight finances, but she never complained. Being a father was both terrifying and heartwarming, and I cherished reading bedtime stories to my girls. They adored me, believing I could solve any problem and brighten any day. Life wasn't easy, but the rewards came in the form of their hugs and kisses. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. Lisa and I faced tough times together. When our kids got pneumonia and were hospitalized, I fell apart, but Lisa stayed strong, assuring me, "Jack, they will get better. No matter what happens, I will always love and support you." In those early years, Lisa was the foundation of our marriage, holding everything together. I owed her everything and was determined to succeed for our family, more than for myself. I'm naturally lazy and unambitious, but marrying Lisa and having our children changed everything. I became driven to succeed, even if it meant making compromises. The first few years were tough, with long hours at work and little reward. I had to use my wits and sometimes bend my principles to get ahead. But coming home to Lisa and our daughters, Kate and Claire, made it all worth it. Lisa went to school in the evenings while I stayed home, working and babysitting. I couldn't have been happier. By the time the girls started kindergarten, Lisa had earned her PhD. She began teaching at the community college and quickly became a full professor at the university. Her income was a blessing, but by then, it was too late for me. I had already made partner at my law firm, but not in an entirely honest way. My income was high, but my morals were low. Still, I had a family to care for, and as a lawyer, I could justify my actions. Eminent domain is the government's right to take private property for public use, like building roads or schools, while paying the owner its value. In theory, it's a necessary process, but in reality, it can be unfair. Lawyers like me step in to help property owners get the most money possible. My success in this field started with a lucky break, being seated next to Ted Daniels in law school. Ted became a key figure in the New York State Senate, dealing with real estate laws. Our connection allowed me to gain inside information, helping me secure lucrative cases where property was being taken for private interests under the guise of redevelopment. My job became about using every trick in the book to ensure my clients got the best deal, even if it meant bending the rules. I worked closely with appraisers, sometimes using their influence to benefit my clients. I relied on tips from Ted about upcoming property takings, and in return, I helped him out of financial troubles. My firm admired my ability to spot new opportunities, and I was rewarded well. Over time, it became easy to justify crossing ethical lines, convincing myself it was a form of community service. More on that later. But back to my wife's phone. I installed a spy program on Lisa's phone to record her conversations and send them to my tablet. It would also forward all her text messages to my phone and let me listen to her calls in real time or record them for later. In theory, nothing Lisa said or heard would be hidden from me, but the reality was different. On the first day, Lisa spent almost 6 hours on the phone. Sifting through all her conversations was overwhelming. She spent 55 minutes just talking with a friend about a dress she saw at the mall but didn't buy. After 4 weeks of this, I started feeling paranoid and was ready to give up. Then a text came in. I was in a meeting when my phone notified me of a new message. I ignored it, but then 2 more came in quickly after. Lisa and I rarely text, so it was unusual. After the meeting, I checked my phone and saw 3 messages relayed from Lisa's phone. "Remember, we're having lunch today, Brad. Can't wait to see you. Love you." I realized Lisa had a lunch date with someone named Brad, who seemed to miss her and had said he loved her. The restaurant was a small, intimate place, perfect for a discreet meeting. It was already afternoon, and I couldn't get there in time, but I could eavesdrop. I activated the bug on her phone and listened as I drove. At first, I only heard car noises, then the sounds of a restaurant and a hostess greeting Lisa. "Good afternoon. What can I do for you?" "I'm meeting someone." "Oh, there he is." Then I heard the sound of them hugging, or maybe kissing. They exchanged greetings and talked about work. Apparently, they had worked together at the university. Brad spoke confidently, complimenting her hair, her dress, her beauty. I listened as he seduced her, which would have been fascinating if it wasn't my wife. When their food arrived, they started talking about me, how old, boring, and uninteresting I had become. Brad told her she deserved better, and he wanted to be with her. But I can't. I'm married. I intend to grow old with Jack. "Please understand," she said. "Can't you see he's already old? You're still young. Live while you can. If you can't leave him, then we'll be separated." "No, I will not cheat." I've only ever been with Jack. I love my husband, but I want you. I need you to feel complete. I need Jack to understand that there has to be a way. Just give me time. Please, for everyone's sake. I've waited so long already. I know, but I need time. Okay, but please no longer than that. As I pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, their conversation shifted to mundane topics again. I parked out of sight, but where I could still see the door and Lisa's car. They discussed how they needed to be together without jeopardizing her marriage. Lisa said, "I still love Jack. We've been together for so long. I owe it to him to try to keep it together." "That's why I love you so much," Brad replied. "You have such deep feelings. I just have to show you that pity is not love." When they walked out, I saw Lisa, dressed to impress, not how she had left the house that morning. Brad was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches or 6 feet 3 inches, slender and athletic, with dark, coffee-colored skin. Handsome, maybe, depending on your taste. But he was young, no more than 32. They kissed goodbye, and he hugged her tightly until she pulled away. Surprisingly, I didn't feel as jealous as I thought I would. Sure, I wanted to knock him out, but I needed some leverage, like a baseball bat and an element of surprise. There's nothing fair about seducing another man's wife. He was just a smooth talker, using her until he got bored. Lisa, being smart, probably knew that. My wife was playing a dangerous game. Not with her lover, but with me. Did she really think I would tolerate it? We have a typical American marriage. Maybe 7% of men rule their homes. The other 93% have to compromise. I had to compromise a lot. Even when I thought I had won an argument with Lisa, she always got her way in the end. But Brad was different, new, forbidden, and irresistible to Lisa. He offered her an escape from a tired, old husband and an empty nest. Brad was just the first man outside our marriage, but likely not the last. My choices were limited: stay with Lisa or leave her. Leaving was hard. We'd been through so much together, and I was admittedly very dependent on her after so many years. I couldn't imagine life without her. But then, what if? That evening, I tried to appear neutral, if not cheerful. Lisa noticed my mood and asked, "What's wrong, Jack?" "Nothing. I guess I'm just tired from work," I replied. "You work too much. You should slow down and take better care of yourself. Maybe join a gym," she suggested. I looked at Lisa closely, feeling critical. I had joined a gym last year and lost 40 of the 50 pounds I had gained since our marriage. I had been working out with a trainer 4 times a week and was in great shape. Her interest in her new boyfriend wasn't about me being out of shape or boring. It was about how she perceived me. I was like an old, comfortable pair of slippers, familiar but no longer appreciated. Lisa needed to work on herself, and eventually, she bought that dress she had been eyeing for so long. She was still debating whether to try on a new man. The next day, I got another surprise. The phone bug caught a conversation I almost missed. Curious, I listened to see if Lisa would mention anything to her mother. "Hey, Mom, just checking in about Thanksgiving. You're bringing the sweet potatoes with bourbon and the broccoli salad, right?" "Of course, dear. But tell me, how was lunch with Brad?" "Oh, Mom, he's great. But he wants to go further and I can't." "Why not? You should have pushed Jack years ago. Now you've lost your leverage. The kids are grown, and you can't use them as an excuse." "Mom, I'd never do that. I may be a bad wife, but I can't be a bad mother." "Nonsense. You're a great wife. Does Jack ever complain?" "No. You keep a perfect home, cook well, raise 2 great girls, and satisfy your husband. Plus, you contribute more financially." "Yes, but now I'm considering infidelity." "It's not cheating if he consents. Jack needs to understand that women's needs change as they age. We need variety, while men just need sex. Having another man won't affect Jack. He's a good man and can prove it by giving you some space. Make sure he knows he'll still come first. But Jack is still a bit immature. I'm not sure he'd agree to share me, and I don't want to risk losing him. Your father isn't broad-minded, but I've been seeing other men for decades, and he hasn't left me. It took time, but he adjusted. You should know that." "Yeah, but Jack isn't Dad. I don't see him accepting that I have a secret lover. Let me talk to Carol. She knows Jack well, and she was the one who convinced him to marry you." Let's see what she thinks, my mother-in-law said before ending the conversation with some cryptic words that shocked me. What did she mean about my parents? I had a sinking feeling that I knew, but didn't want to face it. Tapping Lisa's phone had been a mistake. Hearing what others thought of me only made me feel worse. I spent the next few days waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. Then, my daughter Claire called. "Hi, Mom. Kate and I will be home on Wednesday for the break, but we need to be back on Monday. We have hot dates with 2 soccer players after their game." "Okay, I'll let your dad know. But I thought Kate was dating Rick, the baseball player." "She is, but he has to deal with it," Claire giggled. "I guess times have changed if guys are okay with their girlfriends dating others." "Oh, Mom, you're so old-fashioned. By the way, how's it going with Brad?" "Nothing's going on. I'm married to your dad. What am I supposed to do about Brad?" "Oh, please, Mom. Daddy is a fat old man. He can't expect you to give up someone like Brad for some outdated tradition. You should go for it. Daddy loves you and doesn't have a choice." In the background, Kate added, "Exactly." Then she grabbed the phone. "Mom, do you want us to talk to Dad? We can explain and remind him of everything you've done for him. He loves you more than anything. He can't expect to have you all to himself. It's not fair." "I don't know. Your father never gave in to me, even when he had the chance. He can be very sensitive. But Mom, we know Dad loves you. If you explain how much you want and need a relationship with Brad, just assure him that he'll always come first." "That's what I told Rick, and he's fine with it," Kate said. "Your grandmother is going to talk to Grandma Carol. I hope they can work things out so your father understands that Brad is no threat and that what Brad and I have is just a shadow of what your dad and I share." I was shocked and hurt, hearing my daughters talk about me that way. It was painful to hear them call me a fat old man, even though they claimed Lisa still loved me. I realized I had let myself go. I was in great shape but hadn't paid attention to my gray hair or outdated clothes. I decided to change that. I went to a salon, got my gray hair touched up and restyled. Lisa didn't even notice. Then I went to New York and bought a new wardrobe to show off my slimmer body. I didn't look 32, but I looked good for 48. Still, neither Lisa nor my daughters noticed when they came home for Thanksgiving. They gave me the same cheek kisses they always had. I realized they took me for granted, expecting me to be there when needed and invisible when not. We had little in common and had become strangers under the same roof. I knew more about them than they did about me because I had always been withdrawn. Thanksgiving arrived, bringing both the Harlans and the Boswells together, 27 people in all. After watching the parade and a football game on TV, the women gathered in the kitchen and the men in the living room. I slipped away to the family room, where my daughter-in-law and Claire were watching the small children. I locked myself in, put on headphones, and listened to the conversation in the kitchen. Through Lisa's phone, I recognized my daughter Kate's voice saying, "He's gone into his room," and closed the door. "Okay, someone tell me what's wrong with my son." I heard my mom ask. "What do you mean, Mom?" Lisa replied, "Well, he has new clothes, a new haircut, and less gray hair," my mom said. "Honestly, I noticed something too, but couldn't pinpoint it," Lisa added. "He's also thinner than last year," my sister Claire observed, having not seen me since the previous Christmas. "Yeah, that could be it," Mom agreed. "I don't know. He's been really down the last 2 weeks." "I thought maybe he was having trouble at work again," Lisa said. "You don't think he knows about Brad, do you?" my mother-in-law asked. "I doubt it, and there's nothing to know." "I haven't done anything with Brad," Lisa responded. "Maybe he's having a midlife crisis. The girls have left home, and he's at that age," my mom suggested. "Yes, that would explain the changes," my mother-in-law said. "We should be cautious. If he's having a midlife crisis, we need to ease him into things," my mom advised. "Maybe I should put Brad on hold," Lisa said. "Nonsense. Jack needs a gentle push. We need to get him out of this funk and help him adjust." "It won't help if you're depressed too," my mom insisted. "So should Mom tell him she wants a new lover?" Kate asked. "Not all at once. We should get him talking to your dad and Kenny. They can share their experiences. They've both adjusted well, and there's no reason Jack can't do the same. But if he's feeling old and like life is passing him by, we need to ease him into the idea first," Mom explained. "Being a betrayed husband," Kate giggled. Of course not. Your father is a proud man. He needs care, guidance. I never let my husband go without, even when he wasn't first in my heart. Jack knows he's loved, and it's up to all of us to make sure he feels that, my mom said. The conversation continued, with the women discussing how to manage me, how and when Kenny and my father should prepare me for the realities of married life with a hot wife. They believed they were simply satisfying Lisa's natural needs to keep the marriage strong. My mom was the driving force, with the most experience. They talked about me like I was a child, trying to get me to behave. I listened until I couldn't take it anymore and went for a long walk. When I returned, Lisa was concerned. No one had noticed me leave, and my return made them wonder. Later, when we were alone, Lisa asked what was bothering me. I can't say exactly, but I know things need to change, and I'm not sure I'm ready for the unknown. Jack, no matter what, I'll always love you. You'll always be the most important person in my life, she said, snuggling up to me. I didn't respond because her words made me feel guilty, as they always did. The first Saturday in December, I went to a Giants game with my dad and father-in-law. Kenny got great seats, and my dad paid for a limo and drinks. After an awkward start, they tried to talk about how great it was to let your wife have a lover, touching on all my mom's points. The main idea was that women of a certain age need a young lover, and if you love your wife, you should let her explore. I stayed silent until the last 4 minutes of the game, then finally spoke. I don't know everything, but if I ever catch Lisa with another man, our marriage is over. No ifs, ands, or buts. My elders spent the rest of the game trying to change my mind, but I repeated that any infidelity would end our marriage. Who needs a promiscuous wife? I said, which led them to call me immature and bigoted before heading to the men's room. They were gone a long time, and we left the stadium in silence. Later that evening, I realized it wasn't just a long wait for the men's room. My dad and father-in-law had called home. Both my mom and mother-in-law spoke with Lisa before we even got back, discussing the situation and planning their next steps. Less than a week later, Kenny and Dad dragged me to a gentleman's club with dancers and barmaids. While they indulged in overpriced drinks and lap dances, I stuck to soft drinks and avoided any such entertainment. Their advice boiled down to the supposed benefits of an open marriage. I finally said, I can't trade my wife's fidelity for a lap dance, and left, catching a cab home alone. Nothing more was said about that night. As Christmas approached, the conversations I overheard grew more intense. Brad was flirting with Lisa and pushing for a meeting during the holiday break, a perfect time since I was supposedly working. Anyone who looked closely at me would have noticed something was wrong. Now, for a confession. I had crossed ethical lines in my business dealings. It started with small parcels of land with limited access, called keyhole lots. These lots were cheap and undesirable, located miles from a highway. But when a national retailer needed a warehouse with interstate access, those lots suddenly became valuable. I had inside information from my buddy Ted and found a small, for sale, sign on a rundown property, a 320-acre former dairy farm worth little at the time, but soon to skyrocket in value. I emptied my savings to buy the land, hiding the purchase through a Wyoming corporation with no traceable connections to me. I lied to Lisa, blaming my financial strain on the economy and competition. Instead of being angry, Lisa supported me, working extra and cutting back on everything except the girls' needs. She didn't buy anything for herself for over 2 years while I struggled. For years later, I sold the land at a huge profit, but questions arose. I stayed small and out of sight to avoid scrutiny. I never touched the money, telling myself it was for our old age, hoping that by then, no one would question how I earned it. I was desperate to keep my secret from Lisa and our families. We spent Christmas Eve at a relative's house as usual, but hosted Christmas Day at our place. Lisa and my mom had coordinated the meal. Lisa made a roast turkey, Mom Boswell prepared a crown roast of lamb, and my mom had a ham in the oven. Around 2 in the afternoon, I lifted the stuffed turkey from the trunk of Lisa's new Mercedes, a birthday gift from her parents with a sizable down payment. Jack, when you're done bringing in the turkey, I'd like to talk to you in the den, my mother said. It wasn't a request, but her tone was gentle, almost sympathetic. The den was a small, quiet room at the front of the house. When I entered, Mom was sitting on a short couch and gestured for me to sit beside her. As I sat down, she took my hands in hers, her cool touch familiar from my childhood. "Jack, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself. If you're in trouble, the family is here to help," she said, leaning in and looking me in the eye, waiting for a response. What could be wrong? I have a loving family, a supportive wife, and 2 devoted daughters, I replied, though my words felt hollow. My mom wasn't fooled. She could sense what was left unsaid. "Jack, a good man supports his wife in what she needs. Being a good husband means making sacrifices, just as your wife has done for you over the years," she continued, appealing to the values she had taught me as a child. But she misunderstood who I had become, thinking I was still the man she knew. The thing is, I don't think having a promiscuous wife is honorable. We all sell ourselves for what we want, but not every transaction is dishonest. Some promises are made before God, and if we don't try to keep them, a woman might kiss her son goodnight with lips still warm from infidelity. At this, Mom recoiled as if I had slapped her. Her emotions were clear: surprise, shame, anger, and finally pain. "Jack, what did you say?" "I said your kisses after your adulteries were an abomination." She let go of my hands and ran out of the room. I didn't need to hear Lisa's anguished words to know the impact of what I had said. "Mommy, what happened?" Lisa cried. This was clearly a planned intervention, with the family ready to confront me. But when I left the room, no one was around. Mom must have fled to the kitchen, likely with another family member. I decided to make a quiet exit, taking Lisa's Mercedes and driving to the state park, to the Hudson River observation deck, a place I used to go in high school. It took me until senior year to even get to first base with a girl there. I was never a Casanova, but by the time I turned 27 and graduated from law school, women saw me differently. Unfortunately, by then, Lisa had already laid claim to me, and she wasn't letting go. Looking at my situation, it was a no-win scenario. When Lisa needed me, I was expected to comply. And now that she wanted someone else, I was supposed to submit again, giving her the freedom I never had. Strangely, I understood the logic. Lisa had sacrificed more for our marriage than I had. She made it work, raised our kids, and held everything together. If I had stayed single, we likely wouldn't have had kids, bought a house, or planned for retirement. Now, Lisa wanted a little harmless fun, something she felt she deserved. She didn't deny me the chance. She just didn't think I'd take it. I thought, I'm old and fat. My mom's intentions were to make me accept my limitations while reassuring me that they still loved me and would support me. They thought they were being kind, and maybe I was selfish. I knew this moment would come. I'm not blind or stupid, but Mom and Lisa were right. I stayed a child. Worse, I became spoiled. I saw the game and sank into it, pretending I did it for others or because it was necessary. It wasn't. I cheated because I wanted to win, not for money, but for the sake of winning. Losing to Lisa felt like losing in life, and I'd been losing to her for 25 years. Parking the car, I pulled out my tablet and opened the spyware. "He's not in the house and Mom's car is gone," I heard my daughter Claire say. "With any luck, he won't come back," said Anne, Lisa's sister-in-law. I always knew and disliked me, but now she had a reason. And is attractive, not exactly beautiful, but she has a certain appeal and a seductive voice. I could see why Kenny, not the sharpest, married her. But it was a mistake. She flaunted her infidelities. Kenny, a vice president at his family's bank, ignored the gossip and her behavior, content with his fat salary and comfortable life. They had a 7-year-old son with the same blonde hair and blue eyes as Kenny, and they seemed to get along well enough. As I listened, my mom started plotting. "My son is more than stubborn. He practically called me promiscuous." "I don't believe that," my mother-in-law replied. "Jack is too good a man for that. He seems to know everything. The old folks must have slipped up, and he took it the wrong way," my mom suggested. "What should we do?" "I don't want to lose my husband," Lisa said. "We need to be cunning. If he won't come willingly, we'll have to trick him," Mom advised. "We shouldn't underestimate him," my sister warned. "He's always been shrewd. Maybe not the smartest, but definitely cunning. Remember what he did to Uncle Jeff during the poker game?" She was referring to when, as a teenager, I caught my uncle cheating in our poker games. I figured out his trick and beat him at his own game. For weeks, He couldn't expose me without revealing his own cheating, so the game stopped and he avoided me. My sister remembered this because she once asked why Uncle Jeff was upset, and I laughed. Yes, but he has a weakness we can exploit, Mom said, and then she laid out her plan. The weakness my mom referred to was my low tolerance for alcohol. I don't drink much, but when I do, I get happy and then pass out. Her plan was to get me drunk at a New Year's Eve party with and flirting with me. The idea was that I'd wake up in another bed, confronted by an angry wife. Faced with evidence of my infidelity, I'd be pressured into agreeing to open our marriage, which really meant Lisa would have her fun while I stayed home. The problem was Anne's reluctance to seduce the old fat man. They figured I wasn't attractive enough, but Anne was the best choice since she was married to my friend Kenny, which would add to the guilt, and didn't need to actually do anything, just get some compromising pictures to help. They enlisted my brother Samuel's shy wife, Elaine, who was eager to fit in and would be the perfect witness as the newest family member, married for just 3 years and currently pregnant. Sitting in my wife's expensive car, I looked out at the northern Catskills, where Washington Irving set Rip Van Winkle. The fog rolling over the dark mountains created an eerie scene, fitting for an Irving tale but not for listening to your marriage fall apart. Then Lisa spoke up. "We need to give Jack more time, another chance," she said. "What about Brad? Will he wait?" her mother asked. "Brad is worried. We both have this week off, and he thinks it's the perfect time to get a room. But I still need Jack. He's my first and true love. I'm going to work this out with him. He's never denied me anything, and I don't think he'll start now. We just need to reach an understanding," Lisa replied. "My plan will work. Your husband deserves this for his attitude. Talk to him more, but don't keep Brad waiting because of my stubborn son," my mom advised. "I'll give Jack one more chance to step up," Lisa concluded. I had no choice but to return and endure Christmas dinner with my family. Everyone was cold toward me, except Anne, who had apparently resigned herself to flirting with the old fat man. Lisa pulled me out the door to her Mercedes. "What about Christmas dinner?" I asked. "We're not going. We need to talk," she replied. "Is there something to talk about?" I asked. "Yes, but not here," she said with a sly smile. She drove us to the Hilton, where she had already booked a room. White Star champagne was waiting when we arrived. "What's wrong, love?" I asked. "Nothing's wrong. Please stop worrying. It's not about us. I love you and always will. I want to be with you forever, just like we promised. Forget everyone else. You know I could never love anyone else," I said. "Yes, love." "No," she replied. "Is there a difference?" I asked. "Yes. I'm trying to assure you that we'll be together forever," she said. "You can keep a bird in a cage, but don't leave the door open," I said. "What does that mean?" "I offer us freedom because we love each other. That's what keeps us together. I won't fly away," she said. "Please don't believe me," I said. "I do, but you're wrong." "No, believe me. I can only love you," she insisted. I had no answer. She missed the point entirely. Don't let male pride hurt us. We're just talking about physical needs. "It doesn't mean anything," she said. "Lisa, this is an argument you can't afford to win. Be happy with what we have. Just don't open the door. Don't be stubborn. You know I'll always take care of you. Don't be foolish," I said. I hugged her, realizing our future was uncertain. She couldn't see that everything was built on a lie I had allowed to persist for over 23 years. Lisa believed the lie she told herself, and I had never challenged it. "I love you. Everything will be fine. Believe me," she would say, not realizing she wasn't the problem. "No, believe me. I will never accept what you're offering." "I've kept my end of the bargain," I said, ending the conversation. The following Wednesday, Brad invited my wife to his house for lunch. I listened just long enough to confirm they were done with our marriage by mutual agreement. The loving couple didn't mention me, as if I didn't exist. Friday was New Year's Eve. I started the evening with a drink at O'Malley's, my favorite spot, which is a restaurant bar. I invited all my older friends for drinks, but no family members. Sticking to soft beverages, I didn't arrive at Kenny's house until 10 p.m., taking a cab. My old Honda was parked some distance from Kenny's place that day, hopefully unnoticed. When I arrived, I sat at the bar, feeling worse for wear. It wasn't long before they handed me a very strong drink. They started off slow, but quickly intensified the level of intoxication. I had a tough time shaking them off, but luckily, and Kenny had house plans, and a few trips to the restroom allowed me to stay sober while I pretended to be drunk, and asked me to dance. I let her lead, and after a while, I responded as best I could. Apparently, this happened about 40 minutes after the ball dropped in Times Square, and by then, I was fully pretending to be completely intoxicated. It must have been convincing because Elaine took my hands and started helping me up the stairs. Once in a room I assumed was the guest bedroom, they tossed me onto the bed. "I don't think I want you to do that," I said. Elaine jumped back, surprise written on her face. "Crap, crap, crap," and cursed. "My sister warned you, but who listens in this family?" I said. "Now, both of you go downstairs and send that traitorous fool who calls herself my wife up here." With those words, they ran out of the room. A long time seemed to pass as I sat listening to the commotion below. A few raised voices were heard, but I didn't bother to eavesdrop, as that part of the drama was already over. Eventually, Lisa appeared in the bedroom doorway. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "Yes, come in and sit down," I said as softly and kindly as I could under the circumstances. Lisa sat down, and the tears started flowing. When her nose began streaming, the tears stopped. "I'm sorry that I made a terrible mistake listening to the others," she said. "What are you sorry for? That you wanted another man, or that you had fun with him last Wednesday at his apartment?" I asked. She shrieked, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "No, maybe it's just that Mom's plan didn't work, and now you're caught up in it. Please, Jack, I love you. It doesn't mean anything. You have to believe that," she said, perhaps a little surprised at how calm I was. "No, Lisa, I won't forgive you." "Oh, please, Jack, forgive me, and let's forget about it." "Oh, I forgive you, Lisa. There's really nothing to forgive except a little deception. The problem is the rest of it. You see, I don't love you, never have, and probably never will." "You don't mean that, Jack. That's just your anger talking," she said. I couldn't help but laugh. "Do I seem angry? Let me assure you, I am not. I've spent the last 25 plus years in this marriage. It wasn't all bad. It's been a kind of gilded cage, but now the door is open, and I'm walking out, thanking you for finally setting me free." "Jack, please, that's not what you mean. I'm not going to let you divorce me over such a small thing after all the years of loving devotion I've given you. Do what you want. I'm leaving. I had it all worked out. You held me with pure guilt, and now I have none. You wanted an open marriage, and I'm giving you the most open marriage possible, one without a husband." With those words, I stood up and started to walk away. "What will you tell our daughters?" she asked, her anger rising. "Goodbye is all I will say. I wish to God I could believe they weren't mine, but considering what they are and what my mother is like, I have no doubts. So, goodbye is all I have for them, nothing more." Then I stopped and thought to myself, that's not true. My girls are the little ones who will always be with me. They are locked in my heart. They never grew up. They still wonder if the ducklings will cross the road. With those words, I left my crying wife and walked down the stairs. Of course, my mother, supported by my father, tried to stop me from leaving. "Where are you going?" Mom demanded. A good question that I don't have an answer to, but I guess to a lot of places I haven't been able to visit in 25 years, I said. "So you're just going to run away because life didn't work out the way you wanted it to?" she said. "No, I'm leaving to find my life, the one I've missed so much." "Oh, please, Jack, be reasonable. Everything you have is here. Everyone who loves you is here. Everything we've ever done has been for you. Don't let stupid male pride ruin your life. You don't have a life without us. How will you live? Who will take care of you? If you leave, there may be no going back, son. Think about what that means. Lisa has been good to you. We all know how dependent you are," Dad said. "I'm sorry, but I was already gone. You just didn't notice. The key was in the lock. You just had to turn it," I said. With those words, I kissed my mom gently on the cheek and left, waving broadly at the others and saying a firm goodbye. I left my wife, daughters, brothers, sisters, and parents behind. I was free. I was alone, but in truth, I had always been alone inside. And I wouldn't be alone for long. An older but not fat man possessed the greatest aphrodisiac in existence, cash, millions, for physical attractiveness. I was cashing in and heading for the most remote and decadent places I could find. I traded one old promiscuous wife for as many young ones as I could handle. After 25 years of incarceration, I was out of prison, and a new and different world awaited me.